Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk Blue Jays baseball with you for roughly a half an hour or so, maybe a little bit less, depending. Still fighting a nasty cough, so I want to try to manage myself and be able to deliver a quality show without forcing you to hear me having a coughing fit, because trust me, that's not something you want. Sunny Side of the Dome is normally Thursdays at 6 p.m. My lovely colleague Steve Feck was kind enough to let me have his slots for this week since I'm unavailable this Thursday. Normally you can catch us on Thursdays, today, Tuesday, 6 p.m. And you can catch us live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. If you are following along live and you think of a question or comment, I love that interaction with the audience, so please do send it on in. And if you're not checking us out live, when you're ready for us, we're ready for you. You can check out Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or you can download and listen as an audio podcast. So lots of options to see what we have to say. As well, there's the other shows. There's the main podcast, which is Mondays, 6 p.m., hosted by Sean Doyle, who's always got lots of interesting things. Yesterday, we had Jays from the Couch writer and minor league specialist Ryan Mueller on with us. So if you want to know anything about the Jays farm system and you didn't catch the episode, do check it out. And the other show, as I mentioned, is the On Feck Circle, usually Tuesdays at 6 p.m. This week it'll be Thursday. And Steve Feck is very, very smart, very unique, has a very interesting background, lots of interesting takes. And sometimes I even find that he's right about things when I didn't think he was, but definitely worth checking out if you haven't been doing so. So lots of great content, for you guys. Hope you've all been enjoying it. And how's it going, Blue Jay fans? It's been less than a week since we last met, and we were on the verge of a series with the Tampa Bay Rays, and honestly, I have to say, I'm pretty happy with the way that went. They won the series 2-1 against a team that was previously undefeated. So I'm very happy about that. Unfortunately, the last game got a little greedy, was hoping for a sweep. Unfortunately, Alek Manoah is still struggling a little bit, and it wasn't to be. Last couple of games, two games out of 162, but we'll get back to that shortly. So, leading off, transactions. and once again, there isn't a lot to talk about. And once again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If the guys at the major league level are staying healthy, knock on wood, and if they're producing, if they're getting the job done, then there isn't really a lot of need for transactions. So, since my last show, I was mentioning previously that the Blue Jays optioned Nathan Lukes and called up Jordan Luplow. Well, now they've done the reverse. So Luplow's back down and Nathan Lukes is back up. And they were saying actually on the broadcast that could have something to do with this series versus the Houston Astros, that all three starting pitchers are right-handed, and Nathan Lukes is a left-handed hitter. So I guess they figured having another left-handed hitter available to them for whatever situation could be valuable. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Neither of these guys are really getting much of a look. Again, the Blue Jays are very much a win-now team, and they've got to put their best lineup on the field. And so that 26th man on the roster, understandably, might not get a whole heck of a lot of playing time. Sort of feel bad for Nathan Lukes. I mean, he is 28 years old. He did make his major league debut just this season, and it would be great for him to get a little bit more of a chance, but hey, I mean, they've got to put their best team forward, and if their regular players are healthy and able to get in there and play, then that's who's going to get the majority of the playing time. So see how it goes with Nathan Lukes and again Jonathan Luplow back with AAA. Excuse me just a second. Yeah, playing time was sparse for Luplow when he did get in there with the Jays. He didn't get any hits. He did draw one walk. So see how he does at AAA. Maybe we'll see him again at some point down the road. And yeah, be interesting to keep an eye on that 26th roster spot throughout the year and see what happens. So to the heart of the order, and as things are moving right along here, and our Blue Jays are moving right along as well. So I have to say overall that I've been pretty impressed with the style of play and for the most part with the results. They're 10-7. Again, the last couple of games, unfortunately, the starting pitcher really didn't have a good game. So Kevin Gausman yesterday, his first bad game of the season. Alek Manoah, unfortunately, and a downtrend for him to start this season. And it's really too bad. I mean, he'd earned the ace status, so to speak, with the way that he played over the last two seasons. Had a terrific rookie season in 2021, did even better in 2022, made the All-Star game, finished top 3 in Cy Young voting, and I fully expect him to continue on a very successful path. And it's not to say that he won't. It's just that right now, unfortunately, he's been struggling. So, but prior to that, so the Blue Jays are currently 10-7, which is good for third place in the AL East division. They're 4 games out of first place, so very, very early. Certainly time, and they're not far enough back that they can't catch first place. I do still think that is where they will finish the season as a first place team in the AL East. The Rays finally lost yesterday to someone other than the Blue Jays. They're playing another last place team, though. I mean, what are the odds of this happening? Their competition so far this year, other than the Jays, it's like you almost couldn't do that on purpose if you tried. But yeah, the Cincinnati Reds, they did manage to win a game against the Rays today, and hopefully they'll continue to do so for the rest of the series, help out our Blue Jays and all of that. But yeah, so interesting team. Lots of guys doing really well. Right now, the rotation is kind of a work in progress. I'm not going to spend a heck of a lot of time talking about the rotation right now, just because I believe that it's going to sort itself out. I mean, over the weekend, Jose Barrios, Yusei Kikuchi, back end of the rotation, heaven knows, between last year and so far this year, they've both been so inconsistent. They can actually pitch well at times when they're at their best, but then at other times you don't always understand what happens, and it's kind of puzzling, kind of maddening. And the two of them went out there against the team that currently has the best record in all of baseball in the Rays, and they just took care of business. It was great. They set the tone. They did what they needed to do to give the Blue Jays a chance to win, which they did both games. So that's fantastic. And then the other pitchers, again, they've been up and down, but I believe in all of these guys. And I think where there is improvement needed, that it will happen, they'll figure it out. It seems like maybe the new pitch clock, it can be kind of an issue at times, that guys just aren't used to having to work that quickly. Some guys like having the time in between pitches to compose themselves and so forth. And you know what? The rule has changed, and you guys are professionals, and I'm sorry if it's hard to deal with, but you're going to have to figure it out. And I really do think they will somehow. Excuse me a moment. So my main focus for this evening, certain things that have caught my eye when looking at this team, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Blue Jays bullpen. So many people believe, as I do, that the bullpen as it currently is probably isn't a finished product. If they're going to get to the end of the season, A, making the playoffs, and B, putting themselves in a strong position to do well in the playoffs, to hopefully have as deep a run as they possibly can in the playoffs. They really need a good bullpen. A bullpen has kind of been one of their weak spots the last couple of years, and there have been various different trades in season, and some of them have worked out. Some of them haven't worked out so well, and then there's been some inconsistent results here and there. But certain guys have really caught my eye. And the first one, for all the right reasons, is Canadian Zach Pop. What an amazing under the radar pickup that he has turned out to be. And they said when the Blue Jays made the trade last year, acquiring both Bass and Pop from the Miami Marlins, Bass was having a terrific season last year, and his numbers were really, really good. And if they wanted someone for high leverage, someone to help them out last year, that he really looked like someone who could fit that bill. Zach Pop, his numbers were okay. If I know one of the things that many people look for in relief pitchers is someone with high strikeouts, and that's one thing that Zach Pop did not have prior to this year. Even though he throws hard, he gets as high as high 90s at times. So I mean, he definitely is someone that has the talent. It's just could they manage to do something to harness that talent a little bit differently and maybe bring out the best in him? Well, this season and even during spring training, he wasn't someone who had a spot on the team locked up or anything like most of the veterans on this team. He was one of the final people who actually had to have a roster spot, and he earned it during spring training, and he's continued to earn the right to stay here during the season. So let's take a look at his numbers. So Zach Pop has been in 9 games so far this season for the Blue Jays. He has an earned run average just over 1. That's 1.08. That's darn good. That means that he's doing what's most important to me, and that is limiting opposition scoring. That's what you're out there to do if you're a pitcher. You need to keep the other team off the scoreboard as much as possible and give your team a chance to win, whether you're holding a lead or just holding things so that the offense can get back in it, which unfortunately has been the case a few times already this season. Good that the Blue Jays have managed to take advantage, and they already have a few come from behind victories this season, which is great. It would be really great if they could stop getting themselves into an early hole where they actually have to climb out of it. But yeah, Zach Pop, 1.08 earned run average, a whip of 0.72. That's very, very good. 11 strikeouts in those 9 games. His strikeouts per 9 innings ratio, 11.9. Very, very good. For those who insist that your relief pitchers be high strikeout pitchers, well, Zach Pop has found a way to fit that bill. Excuse me. All right, so great that he made the roster, and if any, knock on wood, as long as he stays healthy and continues to perform like this, if there's any shuffling that needs to be done in the bullpen, it shouldn't be Zach Pop. His performance, he has absolutely earned the right to continue to stay here. Another pitcher who, when they talk about if someone's going to come up, for example, Nate Pearson, and I'll get to him a little bit more in a minute. But obviously, if somebody is added to the roster, that means someone else has to lose their roster spot. One pitcher who is often talked about in this regard as someone who might lose their roster spot is Trevor Richards. And that's because last year, honestly, you never knew what you were going to get from him from one game to the next. He was so inconsistent that you just didn't know. Well, actually, when you look at him so far this season, he has surprisingly overall exceeded expectations. Excuse me a moment. Sorry about that. So Trevor Richards has gotten into 7 games, pitched 7.1 innings. His earned run average is actually on the way down. It was a little on the high side, but he's put together a few good outings, and his ERA isn't that bad at all. It's only 3.68. Walks per 9 innings, that's one thing he should really try to do a little bit better at. That's pretty high at 4.9. The strikeouts per 9 innings, 13.5. So Trevor Richards, he's got a fastball. He's also got that changeup, and when it's working for him, he can fool batters, and he does fool batters. And I'm looking at those numbers, and if he can keep up something like that, he might not necessarily be your number one leverage pitcher, but I feel like he's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. Somebody who could be on his way up possibly is Nate Pearson. So a lot of people thought that Pearson might earn that final pitcher roster spot out of spring training. He had an interesting spring. The velocity is still there. The ability to strike out batters is still there. Unfortunately, there's some wildness. Even when I was down at spring training, I saw a bit of it. So maybe the Jays, excuse me, just wanted to see a little bit more consistency from Pearson. Sorry. So yeah, he's been down at AAA. He's gotten into 6 games. He had one game where he got touched up a little bit, but for the most part, he's doing quite well. His earned run average is pretty good, 2.84. The walks, as I said, that's pitch command. Location command is something that he can still work on. That's a little high at 5.7 walks per 9 innings. So hopefully, if and when he gets the call, he won't be doing that up here, because you can't give major league hitters free passes because they'll make you pay. Strikeouts, if you like strikeouts per 9 innings, well, hold on to your hat, folks. Nate Pearson at AAA has struck out 19.9 batters per 9 innings pitched. So essentially just over 2 batters per inning. So yeah. Batters, for the most part, when they try to swing at what Nate Pearson has to offer, they've been overmatched. And that's a good thing, because if he's going to come up at some point and dominate major league hitters, that he has to be able to do it against the minor leaguers. And for the most part, he's doing it. So I feel like we could see Nate Pearson. I think it's just a matter of time before he does make an appearance here with the Toronto Blue Jays. And hopefully once he comes up this time, that he'll be here to stay, that he'll just grab the roster spots and run with it, so to speak, that he'll succeed and be able to help the Blue Jays win. So where does that leave us if Nate Pearson or somebody else were to get called up? I mean, there's other options. There's Mitch White if he gets healthy at some points. A couple of other relief pitchers down at AAA that people talk about. So who would I say is likely to lose their roster spot as things stand right now? Well, the person who really stands out, and not for the right reasons to me, is Anthony Bass. And it's really unfortunate because, again, the Blue Jays went out. Firstly, he'd already been with them in the past. He was a Blue Jay, I believe, in the 2020 season. Then he left that offseason, signed with the Marlins, but then 2 years later gets traded back to the Toronto Blue Jays. He was having a fantastic season last year. Toward the end of the regular season, I remember he gave up a home run or two, but then there was last year's playoffs. And if you recall, he got into that game too, and he did not get anybody out. The Toronto Blue Jays still had the lead, and John Schneider felt that he couldn't wait any longer with Anthony Bass. He had to bring in Jordan Romano for what they were asking him for, a 6-out save. I had a bad feeling even when they brought him in. It's like, no, that's too much to ask of him. And well, we all know the results of that game. And Anthony Bass, he's even commented himself that once the season was over last year, he kind of mentally took a step away from baseball and really didn't even think about baseball. I guess he was bothered by that game, by his own performance, and wanted to kind of mentally reset. So I don't know what's going on with him lately, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, but he stands out, as I said, for all the wrong reasons. His earned run average is 7.36. His whip is over 2. It's 2.045. Yikes. And yeah, that's in 8 games, 7.1 innings pitched. So things aren't really looking that good for Anthony Bass right now. Unfortunately, he's not really doing a lot to help the Blue Jays. I mean, he's certainly, if I were the one making the decisions, he is not the one I'd be running out there in any kind of leverage situation. I mean, you've got to go with the guys that get the job done, that have been getting the job done, and who you can pretty much count on. So, I mean, if Pop isn't usually used in those situations, maybe he should be going forward. Maybe that's something they should really take a look at and trust him with a little bit tighter games and know that he can get the job done, because he certainly has been. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the team, in particularly the bullpen, I think, looks like by the end of this season, because again, knock on wood, everybody's staying healthy. I sort of feel like the rotation is set for the most part. The position players are set, but it's that bullpen where we could see a little bit of a revolving door. Don't forget about Chad Green. If he comes back at some point, if he's ready to come back from Tommy John surgery and able to help the Blue Jays win some games, we'll see. He is someone who has been a leverage, high strikeout arm in the past. So if he can return to anything like that, it will have been a good gamble. Excuse me. Anyway, so lots to think about there. Lots of stuff to digest. Mostly good, but there's always the good and the bad. Coming to the end of today's episode, which brings us to Through Blue Jays Colored Glasses. So the Blue Jays have had a very interesting start to their season. After that crazy game on opening day, where it didn't look like they were going to win, and they just kept coming from behind, ended up winning. Unfortunately, they lost that series. Well, since then, they've played 4 full series, and they haven't lost a series yet. They've won 4 series in a row. And I'm really happy about this. So, some fans, I mean, as soon as they lose a game or two, they're ready to jump off the bandwagon. Folks, this is Major League Baseball. There are 162 games in a Major League Baseball season, and nobody ever goes 162-0. Everybody's going to lose a certain percentage of the time. They say the adage that as a baseball fan, I learned when I was learning baseball is you're going to win 50, you're going to lose 50. And that's almost always true in the history of baseball. It's what you do with those other 62 that count. So they lose a game here and they lose a game there, and they're on a small losing streak right now, those 2 games. I'm still hopeful that they can turn it around today and hopefully win another series, even though it's against a tough team, the Houston Astros. They don't have the best record right now, but they are the defending champions for a reason. So it certainly isn't easy to go into their place and take a series 2 out of 3, but I believe in our guys. I think they can do it. I think that more often than not, they're going to be winning series. And as we get deep into this season, that's what we're going to see. A team that more often than not wins series, and you keep doing that series after series after series, and at the end of the season, you're going to find yourselves in a playoff spot. And that's what I believe will happen for our Toronto Blue Jays. I think they're a very talented team. I like the fact that they have several different players who can be the hero on any given night. I think they have a lot of different ways that they can beat guys. They can beat guys with pitching, whether that's in the rotation or out of the bullpen. They've got power, they've got speed, they can steal bases, they can bunt for a base hit, which I love. I love small ball. And there's a lot of guys on this team who play really good defense. So they've got a lot of different weapons in the arsenal. And I'm enjoying it, and I think we're going to continue to have a special season. So keep tuning in, Blue Jays fans. And remember, if we keep winning series, we're going to be in really good shape. And on that note, that's all I've got for you for this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll see you again a week from Thursday.